tools and general, I mean, there's a lot more technical information available in the internet than what I'm going to give to you, but for like client communication, this should give you what you need. So I've worked with web application development for about half of my life. In the beginning, I mean, we did just like do shitty websites without them being responsive, and well, you didn't have mobile devices with which you would use this website anyways. Then we got rewarded with this responsive design and whatnot. And I think that these progressive web applications are going to take it to the next level. They are going to bring the web sphere closer to the mobile sphere than anything we've seen before. My job, I'm the CEO of Druid. It's a Finnish Drupal agency. What I do most of my time with clients is that I communicate. I don't do actually sales because I try to avoid lying to them. I'm just trying to communicate what they can do with the technology, and figure out together with the customers, trying to figure out what we should do, what they could do with the technology. Anyways, like I said, this is essentially a sales presentation. It's going to be high level. I do have some references but it's not fully fact checked. This is not really a scientific approach to the subject. Bold statements and whatnot. So anyways, and one additional thing to tell about myself is that I'm really addicted to mobile phones. I mean, these little Tamagotchis, I use them every day. I have plenty of applications. I try to do as much of my work with the mobile phone as possible. I spend my time on the phone and use whatever applications that are available. But the sad thing is that the mobile applications, in general, they suck. I mean, yeah, they for typical tasks that you do with them, you're just consuming data, maybe writing something, communicating. For those tasks, they are really, really oversized and overpowered. They tend to be asking way more permissions that you would want to give them. I mean, if you're just booking an appointment for your doctor or some medical appointment, why would they need to know your GPS coordinates, where you live, what do you eat for breakfast and whatnot? So they're just asking all these permissions that have, from the user's perspective, they have nothing to do with the task that you're trying to accomplish with them. The installation is a bit difficult. I mean, you just want to book the appointment or buy something from online, and they're asking that maybe you should install this application. Why? I'm doing this once in my life, this whole process, and you're asking me to commit into installing an application. So you're actually losing conversions in that stage. Then from the development perspective, they're really slow to update, expensive to maintain. Nowadays, again, we are treated with this luxury of only having 2 mobile platforms to support. This wasn't the case maybe 6 years ago, I think. We still had the Windows Mobile, we had Symbian phones and so on. Now we only have 2 overlords we need to bow to, Google and Apple. But still, I mean, you still need to have a mobile application, you need to have you need to have a website. You need to have a mobile application for Apple's platform and for Android. So that's already 3 code bases you need to maintain. For customers, this is a bit too much if they just want to focus on their core business. And then on top of that, if you're only going to stick with mobile application, you have your content in the mobile application and it's not going to be discovered by the search engines, at least easily. I mean, all of these things, they can be circumvented, but that again costs time and money. So in most cases, this shit could be done better through web. But mobile applications are not totally horrible. I mean, like I said, I love my Tamagotchis that live in my little device. Once you install the mobile application, it's really easy to use. just a one click of the icon and the application starts quickly. You don't need to remember anything. You don't need to go into some address and start using or logging in. And they're reasonably fast to use. They have a lot better conversion rates than what you would get on mobile website. And since the service is living on your phone, you have the tendency of going back again and again back to the application. If you would do some processing, that would happen on the user's device. You don't necessarily even have to have a backend if you have a standalone application, but those cases in the commercial world are pretty rare. And obviously we have the offline usage. Offline usage, when I flew here, I had like downloaded stuff on my Netflix application. I could use them on the plane. Obviously, you would have a Wi-Fi on the plane, but that's like, yeah, shit, most of the time. And then you have the push notifications. If you, I mean, these services, they have the tendency of sending emails to you, saying that, yes, please come back. I saw that you left your shopping basket in the service and you didn't buy anything. Maybe you should get back and blah, blah, blah. But nobody reads them. With push notifications, if you allow the application to have them, they're annoying, but they're effective. So this is how you get the retention. And mobile applications are really good for services you use really often. If you have something that you do daily, maybe like checking Facebook or whatever people do nowadays, or using Twitter, it's really handy that you don't need to go to a web service and then have to like do the whole process from there. But it's nice that you have it on the phone. So we have the progressive web application. This is like a really old thing, but it hasn't been really usable until now. I mean, like back in the days when the first iPhone was published, Steve Jobs, I think at least, I haven't fact-checked this, but he was already then mentioning that in the future you can download your applications from the internet instead of going to the App Store. But then something happened, and they actually noticed it's a really good business. I mean, and after that, no more web applications for iOS people. I mean, that's just the story. I mean, it's a huge business. You have this like they make several percentages of the profit, all the shopping and stuff that you buy through the application, they get their own share. So why would the people from that are behind the app stores try to like give it away? Well, anyways, in 2015, Google, a couple of guys from Google, they coined the term progressive web applications. It wasn't invented at Google, but they kind of like figured out what they should be called, and both platforms have been supporting it more or less since then. And now we get back to the good old days when you needed to optimize for Internet Explorer, you needed to optimize for Mozilla, you needed to optimize for whatever, Firefox, and so on. So it was really the case that you could do most of the stuff using Android phone, and then rest of the stuff, basically most of the stuff wasn't supported by the iOS. Namely stuff that the clients were mostly interested in, and that was the push notifications. I mean, what people actually want, in my experience, what the customers want from the mobile applications, not the quick user experience or something like that. It's the push notification. They want to have that. And in the beginning of this year, February, we finally the iOS started supporting push notifications on the progressive web applications. Now it actually is on par with the Android platform. There's a still bunch of stuff that can't be used on like where the platforms differ, and you need to be, when you're selling the idea to your customers, you need to be aware so that you don't really like talking to yourself in the ditch. But the PWAs are like, essentially, there are installable web applications. They are normal web-based services that can be used with desktop and mobile devices. It's the same code base, but it's just something that can be installed on your device. In practice, they utilize the JavaScript APIs to make some of the functionality. It's not mandatory, but it's like it's what makes the applications cool. And in best cases, the user experience is really comparable to that of the native application. There's a caveat though, and that's the thing that when you're the users will be aware that you're using a web application, because what's the case with when the user downloads a native application on their phone and start using it, they expect it to behave in a certain way. You have the user interface paradigm of that platform. Apple applications all behave pretty much the same way, and it's the same with Android. And then when you have something that you're doing in the mobile using a web platform, it's not going to be the same. It's going to be basically a website. Website, you can make it look like Android or iOS, but the users would feel a bit strange using that. So that's something to avoid. In my opinion, it's better to stick with the website or web application design. So what you can do with this, these are the results. It's something that you install on your phone, you get the same retention, you get the same like you get the push notifications, the offline use and so on. And these are the results that you get if you compare progressive web applications to a traditional, regular website. In addition to this, I mean, there's an application called Twitter Lite, and in practice, if you compare the numbers, for example, for Twitter Lite, they managed to limit the space the application uses on the phone to 3% of that of the native application. So it's like a lot smaller. For Trivago, I think that these numbers are a bit old, but the ones I have in the notes are like more like current. So for example, Trivago, when they created this PWA, they experienced 150% increase in revisits and 100% increase in click-throughs to their hotel offers. Then we have, for the lonely people out there, we have Tinder's progressive web application, which is 2.8 megabytes compared to the 30 megabytes of the native Android application. So these are the benefits. It's not like, I mean, we live in luxury. We have good Wi-Fi. We have the infrastructure around here, but not that many people, like not all the users are based in Europe or have a like good connection. For people living in third world countries or with slower connection, these things actually matter a lot. I mean, if you have 500 gigabytes of storage on your Android phone, it's, what does it matter really if it's like 30 megabytes or 3 megabytes or whatnot? You start to get worried when it's like starting to go into gigabytes. But anyways, for people with slow network connections who want the application to start really quickly, these sizes matter a lot. This is an excerpt from Wikipedia. So obviously these are just like things that make the definition of the progressive web application. But things to highlight are that it's progressive. It means that like you don't like limit the user agent based on like it should work on all user agents. It should be responsible, work with all the screen sizes. It's safe. It's always going to be served with secure HTTPS and so on. So it's otherwise it's kind of like a loose definition. And it's really easy to set up. I mean, in practice, it's really easy to get started. You just have the bare bones versions is that you have the basic web service, and then you have website manifest. It's a JSON file that tells the browser or application what kind of like background colors you use, what are the icons for different screen sizes, and this kind of like basic data. And then you have a JS file, which is the service worker, which is responsible for showing the for the offline use and push notifications. And this is just what you do when you want to install it. The service worker is the most technical part of this thing. It's a JavaScript proxy that manages all the network connections. So the rest of the application can do whatever they want, but the service worker actually it runs on a separate thread, and it's this one entity that manages the network connection. So you define there what you want to cache and how the network should behave. And we're going to have a demo. Hopefully it works. So yeah, BMW. The site is pretty nice, and you can see there's this banner that appears at the down of the at the lower end of the screen, which typically you would recognize a PWA from that. And when you click on it, you install it, and then it takes a bit more time. You get the notification that the application is being installed. It appears on your home screen, and then next time when you open it, you get the splash screen, and then you don't live in a browser anymore. It's in the background, the browser, but you can't see it. The system top bar, the color is actually it's something that you can design in your manifest. You can set that to whatever you want, and but the service still works as you might expect. If you go outside the application, if you have a link that points outside your web application, for example, here I'm scrolling to the BMW's Finnish site. You can see that it's like bmw.fi. It shows you on the top that you're not in the application anymore. It's just like this browser in a browser, where you can actually check it's visible to you as a user, whether you're in an application or not. I'm going to skip most of the demos. This is just an example of the user experience. This is really horrible with all the banners and so on. This is not what you would expect in a mobile application. You would expect it on the website though. Well, anyways, so basically the Starbucks has this ordering application. It can be found at app.starbucks.com, and it's a PWA that is really, really that much smaller than the same application than the iOS. And by using that, when people started installing it, it actually doubled the number of the online orders. This is something that I tested with my blog. It's a WordPress blog, a simple one, but this is how you would convert a simple static blog into a PWA application. So basically, install a plugin. Install the plugin. You actually get the bar down there that prompts the install. You install it, and then it runs. It's just as simple as installing a plugin. You get the same behavior on the desktop. So if you have something that you run on desktop, you just need to click the icon in the bar, and then basically you get the icon, and it is run the application in its own window. So it's easy to create, convert your existing website to a PWA, but the user experience isn't really getting any better from that. I mean, you just get the icon. You don't get offline. You don't get push notification. It's just that you get the icon, and it's something that your clients could be interested in, but it's just a fancy bookmark. In order to get the benefits from these applications, you actually need to start developing them with JavaScript. These are the trend. These are the terms We have the traditional web service. We have the single-page application. You might remember this from 5 years ago. It's just an application you do fully with JavaScript. And then we have the progressive web application. The thing is that you can, like single-page application, typically always requires online, like access to the net. But if you just add the manifest, you do some refactoring and whatnot, you can easily convert that to a progressive web application. The headless is, in the context that I encounter it most, is mostly a sales buzzword. But it gets customers confused. They see all these terms like we had the single page application, your competitor suggested we do an SPA, you are talking about PWA, and then this is like the headless trend that's going on. Basically, for the clients, it might make sense that you clarify the terms for them. So the next question from your customers would be that what can you do with this application? A full website renewal, of course. I mean, yes, let's just scrap the old service and you give me money and then we make it all again and it's going to be better this time. No, this is not the correct approach. I mean, most of the services you need to make them better incrementally. This is like how the customers see the salespeople when you approach from the door. Hey, you know, I have this thing. let's do something. But actually, there's many reasons why the customers might be interested in this. I mean, ease of development, cost of maintenance. You have only one code base. That's obvious benefit. You can do the updates. You can do the releases whenever the customer wants them. When you need to do that. If you screw up in deployment, you have something that you don't want the application to have, and you need to submit a new version to an app store. It might take a week in the worst cases. I mean, they promise quicker updates to most of the app stores, but I read horror stories in the internet where they tell you that, like, yeah, it will take 7 days and it's the holiday season or whatnot. With this thing, you can deploy your mobile applications the same way you deploy your web applications immediately. It's kind of a perfect solution for a limited access application. If you have a worker who works in the, let's say, like a storage and they need to scan barcodes, maybe they don't have offline, like steady net connection there, and it's a fully internal application. It's kind of like easy to create this kind of like barcode scanning ERP type of thingy, deploy it to internet where it's accessible for the people, and then you just add like some offline features so that when the data gets synchronized whenever they get back online. And of course, if you really have to, you can publish your PWAs in an app store using this service called Bubble Wrap. It's not the same as Apache Cordoba. Basically, it's a bit different, but still. And then there's a bunch of limitations. They might ask like, okay, this is not a native application. What can you do with it? These are the web JavaScript APIs that are supported by iOS. There's more if you just stick with Android platform, but this is what you get on iOS. This is not going to make you too much wiser, but when you just figure out what you actually can do with these APIs, I mean, you get access to clipboard. You can, for some reason, if you want to use a PlayStation controller on your e-commerce site, you could do that in theory. I mean, they are using those for many things nowadays, apparently. You could do like a speech synthesization, speech recognition, access to phone contact. Or whenever, if you need to do an authentication with an SMS, you can even like read the user's SMS, like the access code directly from the SMS the user receives. So actually, it's a lot that you can do with this without going native. It's not just talk. I mean, we did already our first PWA in 2000. Like 4 years ago for this like Finnish learning services provider. It wasn't too fancy, but it was like a perfect use case where they needed to have an application that would ease communication with an intern, with the workplace instructor and the teacher itself. Obviously, they wouldn't want to install a native application for that because it's just like only for the internship and people have too much applications already and whatnot. So we created this kind of like service for them. It wasn't too fancy. It had a multimedia capable chat. The workplace instructor was able to rate the students' actions, and then they would be able to like clarify the goals of the internship using the application. But still, it was a good use case for the PWA. So, anyways, this is it. Hopefully, you got something out of the presentation. Do you have any questions?
Thanks for that. I was just wondering if you can clarify, how do people get these progressive web applications onto their phones?
Okay, so you need to go into some web service. Let's say you go to the bmw.com. You have two options how they would be like how you could install that from this from that site. But the easiest way for the customer, for the developer, is to set up a prompt. So it's something that rises up from the bottom of the screen, saying that, hey, would you like to install this service on your phone? And that's, I think, the easiest way to trigger the installation. There's another one that for example, the Starbucks application, the app.starbucks.com uses. They don't have a prompt that comes up. They don't like hassle the user with it. If you have an ad heavy website with prompts having like, you need to have the cookie consent, obviously you need to have a lot of prompts for the user. Maybe it's a bit like too much to use like, would you please want to install this application? It's again, one prompt more. So at least on Android phone, where you would typically make a bookmark in the menu, instead of just bookmark this page, if it's a PWA, instead of like bookmark this page, it says install application. So there's two options, but the prompt is obviously it's better because like no one else except you guys now knows how to install these if they don't use the prompt. So that's the easiest way.
So it involves trust between me and the person I want to download it from.
Well, technically yes. I mean, it requires commitment. But since you're already using the web service, you wouldn't be giving any additional permissions to it. It's just basically you're already like the cookies are the same, the permissions are the same, and so on. So it wouldn't require anything additional. It's already running through HTTPS and so on. But it does requires commitment. You want to get like a new icon on your screen.
I may be out of fashion, I'm not so sure about, but I always feel, rightly or wrongly, that if I get it from Android, then they've already checked for any malware or whatever in the code before I get it. That's just something in my head, you know. But perhaps I'll get used to downloading these progressive web apps.
Sorry, could you please repeat? I mean, yes, in Android, in theory at least, they check the applications. But when you install native application, it actually gets a lot more permissions by default than what you would get on a given web application. So in that sense, the web applications are safer because they still like, even though the browser is not visible, you will still live in that sandbox. And nowadays, at least my newsfeed gets a lot of these like news where they say that if you're using this and this application, you need to uninstall it immediately because. So with that high volume, I mean, they probably do the security checks automatically, and they probably check that there aren't some actual malware being installed in the. But there has been a lot of cases where actually your phone starts mining Bitcoin while you sleep with these Android applications, and so on. So it's and obviously like they have the access to the phone basically all the time. I mean, you definitely could do shit with PWA as well, but there are still like limitations that take place, especially when you're not using the application.
Okay, thanks very much for that.
So how does it work with requesting permissions? For example, you mentioned there's an API to read the text of incoming text messages. Like, how does it work to get permission to get some kind of things like that?
Oh, the application works pretty much the same way like it does in the web scope. The SMS thing in particular, by the way, I'm really happy that I checked that one out because you asked about it. But it's basically a hidden field in when you have the OTP, like the one-time password. But there's a hidden field on the form that you are where you should be like the form where you should be typing that number manually. It actually is like labeled differently so that when the same label comes in the SMS meta, it actually like just magically appears there.
So then I can just define random labels, and when people are getting SMS with that label, I can read it. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I think that like technically it works that you have when you have this the form, you need to have like one like generate a key that matches the form field, and then the SMS has the same key in the meta field, so it's like this one-time thingy.
I see. Okay. Second question I would have: what do you think about handling the website and the mobile app? Like once you build that PWA, well, once you access it on the website, you already access exactly the same, right? Or what do you think are like the best practices? Do you still like make the whole progressive web app also available just like as a regular website and you just have that, or is it best practice to like still have a separate mobile website and then maybe at another URL to have the PWA?
Again, I think that I would like my personal philosophy is that you just need to have one site for one service per one site, but there might be use cases where you have something like you need to have like some additional information, like corporate information, some additional use cases. For example, Starbucks application, it's really obviously oriented heavily towards making the order. You're not interested when you go to Starbucks website. You're not interested in their corporate story or what. You just want to have your coffee with and so on. So in that case, maybe it would make sense if you need to have a corporate website. Maybe if you want to have jobs, available jobs or something. So if you have this one funnel that you want to drive your users into, then it might make sense to have a separate application.
I see.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Two-part question. First, is it possible to install a PWA onto the home screen directly from a QR code? And then second question is, do you ever give customers high-level guidance? Because if I understand it correctly, the offline use is really based on in the manifest saying what content should be stored on the device for offline use. And do you ever give customers like high-level guidance in terms of like what content should be stored versus accessed dynamically, when the device is online?
So the QR code basically you would you wouldn't be able to install it directly from a QR code. You would the QR code would take the user to the PWA with the prompt or something, and then it requires a system prompt saying that would you really want to install this application. So you wouldn't be able to do that automatically. The caching limitations are currently if you just use and now I'm talking about iOS because that's the more limited platform in this case. The current caching limitations are 50 megabytes if you use the service worker. Basically, define there what you want to cache, and then maximum of I think 500 megabytes if you use IndexedDB in the background. And I read somewhere that you could actually put video and audio and whatnot to the IndexedDB, so it's not just for text data. But yeah, if a customer asks, I mean, it's clearly if you just have a simple website or web service, your e-commerce site, you need to be online anyway. I mean, so in that case, you would probably cache only the pictures, the logos, front page content to enable instant startup of the application. But since the data itself, you probably would want it to be current and not being cached, because you need to be online anyway to be able to purchase something. But for example, if the customer would be in a cave and they needed to go through work instructions or something like that, then it would be a lot easier. It would just convert into text and then push it to IndexedDB and so on. So it really depends on the use case. But normally I would just cache enough resources so that would enable the fast startup of the application, because that's the most important thing anyway.
All right, I will break it up at this point. One round of applause for you.
Good.